The cathedral's postern gate opened before Ben could announce himself. Apparently, a flying alien carrying 3 unconscious children was distinctive enough to be recognized on approach. Sister Superior Magdalena, a scarred veteran with a bionic eye and bolter clutched in servo-assisted hands, met him at the entrance. She took in the children, Ben's jet ray form, and the pillar of smoke visible over the city's skyline with a single calculating glance. "The Medici district?" she asked, voice clipped. Ben nodded, not trusting himself to speak yet. The transformation timeout was approaching, his alien form's stamina nearly depleted from carrying the children across 2 kilometers of contested airspace. He set them down carefully in the courtyard, and Sister Melina rushed forward with other Medici, already assessing vitals and injuries. "The others!" Magdalena pressed. The timeout hit. Green light flashed, and suddenly Ben was 16 again, human again, weak again. He swayed on his feet, caught himself against a wall. "Dead," he said flatly. "All of them. The cultists got there first. They were doing something. A ritual. Using the kids for it." His voice threatened to crack. "I stopped it, but I didn't stop it fast enough." Magdalena's expression didn't change. That blank, professional mask that soldiers learned when too much emotion meant getting killed. "How many did you save?" 3. The number felt like an accusation. "There were at least 17. Maybe more. I don't know. The building's gone now." 3 is more than 0, Magdalena said, and there might have been something almost kind in her tone. "The canoness will want your report. Can you walk?" Ben nodded, pushed off the wall, and immediately stumbled. Magdalena caught his arm with surprising gentleness for someone in powered armor. "When did you last eat?" she asked. "I don't remember. Before the dimensional thing. Maybe 8 hours? 10? Time had become meaningless somewhere between getting shot at by space cops and watching a hospital burn. "Medici," Magdalena called to one of the white-robed attendants. "Ration bar and water for the outsider. He's crashing from sustained transformation use." She looked back at Ben. "Your device. It draws on your body's resources?" "Yeah. The more I transform, the more energy it burns." Ben accepted the ration bar gratefully. It tasted like compressed cardboard mixed with protein powder, but his body didn't care. He devoured it in 3 bites. Multiple transformations in short succession, plus the flying while carrying weight. "I'm running on empty." "Then you performed adequately under difficult conditions." Magdalena released his arm, apparently satisfied he wouldn't collapse. The canoness expected a complete loss. 3 survivors exceeds projections.
"Exceeds projections," Ben repeated namely.
"Is that what we're calling it? I let 14 kids die. You couldn't have saved them." The statement was matter-of-fact, delivered with the certainty of someone who'd made similar calculations countless times. Not against chaos ritual work already in progress. The corruption spreads too fast, too deep. Those children were lost the moment the ritual began. Her bionic eye word, focusing on him with mechanical precision. "But you prevented it from spreading further. You denied the enemy their objective. And you extracted 3 assets that would otherwise have been expended. By any tactical measure, you succeeded." Ben wanted to argue, wanted to scream that children weren't assets to be extracted. That failure wasn't success just because it could have been worse. But he was too exhausted, too hollowed out by what he'd seen and done. "The canoness," he said instead. "Where is she?" "Command center. She's been tracking your progress through Auspex readings." Magdalena gestured toward the stairs. "I'll escort you. Try not to pass out on the way." The climb was agony. Ben's legs felt like jelly, and each step sent lances of pain through muscles pushed well past their limits. Transformation always came with a cost. Azimuth had explained it once in terms of cellular stress and energy debt, but he'd never pushed himself this hard without rest. They found Adrielle exactly where they'd left her, studying her tactical displays with the same clinical focus. She looked up as they entered, and for a brief moment, something almost human flickered across her scarred face. "You're alive," she observed. "That's unexpected." "Sorry to disappoint," Ben said, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. "I didn't say it was disappointing." Adriel gestured to a stool. "Sit before you fall. Sister Superior, report. 3 survivors, all juveniles, currently undergoing medical examination," Magdalena recited. "The Medici district is a total loss. Fires visible from here suggest structural collapse imminent. The outsider reports chaos ritual work in progress, now terminated through his intervention." She paused. "He performed within acceptable parameters for an untrained asset." "Untrained asset," Ben muttered. "Is that what I am now? Would you prefer potential heretic under observation?" Adriel's tone was dry. "Magdalena is giving you a compliment, by her standards. She usually classifies new operatives as acceptable waste of ammunition." Despite everything, Ben felt a laugh trying to escape, came out more like a strangled cough. "Your compliments need work." Adriel's expression softened fractionally, or maybe Ben was just hallucinating from exhaustion. "Tell me what happened. All of it. Leave nothing out." So Ben told her. The cultists, the ritual, Nithra and her vials of corruption. The impossible choice between fighting an enemy he couldn't touch and saving children he couldn't reach. The explosion, the flames, the 3 he'd saved and the 14 he hadn't. When he finished, the room was silent except for the distant sounds of battle outside. "You burned them alive," Adriel said finally. "Not an accusation, just a statement of fact." "I burned the building," Ben corrected, though the distinction felt hollow. "Some of them might have gotten out. Nithra did, maybe. I don't know." He met her eyes. "I did what I had to do. What you would have done. Perhaps." Adriel studied him for a long moment. "But I am a warrior of the Adeptus Sororitas, trained since childhood in the necessity of hard choices. You are a 16-year-old boy from a universe where such choices apparently aren't required." She leaned forward. "How do you feel about what you did?" It was a trap question. Ben could sense it. Answer wrong and he'd prove himself too weak for this universe's realities. Answer right and he'd prove himself corrupted by those same realities. "I feel sick," he said honestly. "I keep seeing their faces, the ones I didn't save. I keep thinking maybe there was another way. Maybe if I'd been faster or smarter or—" His voice cracked. "But I also know that if I'd hesitated, if I'd tried to fight Nithra with her corruption vials, I might have lost all 3 survivors. So I made a call. The lesser evil." "There is no lesser evil," Father Matthias said from the doorway. Ben hadn't heard him enter. "Only evil we deem necessary and evil we can refuse. The question is whether you can tell the difference." "Can you?" Ben challenged, too tired for diplomacy. "Can any of you? Because from where I'm standing, this whole civilization runs on necessary evil. The paranoia, the executions, the way you treat your own people like disposable resources." "Careful, boy," Adriel warned, her hand drifting toward her sword hilt. "No, let him speak," Matthias interjected. "He's earned that much." The old priest approached Ben, his ancient eyes sad. "You think we're monsters. You think we've lost our humanity in pursuit of survival. Perhaps you're right. But answer me this. What would you have done differently?" "I would have—" Ben started, then stopped. What would he have done? Evacuated the city before the attack? That required foreknowledge they didn't have. Negotiated with Caliph? The sorcerer wanted to dissect him. Tried to save every single person. He'd just proven that was impossible. "I would have found a way." "A way?" Matthias repeated softly. "The eternal refrain of the young and idealistic. There must be a way. There is always a way. Until the day you learn that sometimes there isn't." that sometimes every path leads to damnation, and the only choice is which souls you damn and which you save. He placed a gnarled hand on Ben's shoulder. You made the choice of a soldier today, boy. You triaged. You accepted losses to minimize casualties. You performed evil that you deemed necessary. His grip tightened. The question now is, will you forgive yourself for it? Or will you let that guilt consume you? Ben didn't have an answer. His mind kept replaying the explosion, the screams, the weight of 3 children against the absence of 14 more. I don't know, he admitted finally. I don't know how you live with it. Prayer helps, Matthias said. Also liquor, though don't tell the canoness I said that. I heard that, Father, Adrielle said without looking up from her maps. A Vox unit on the table crackled to life, sparing Ben from having to respond. Canoness, this is Watch Captain Stern, Eastern Perimeter. Enemy forces are massing for a major push. We're tracking multiple Chaos Sorcerers channeling warp energy. Estimate 5 minutes until assault. Adrielle's entire demeanor shifted, from interrogator to commander in an instant. Acknowledged. All positions, prepare for coordinated assault. Stern, fall back to secondary defense line and prepare incendiary countermeasures. If they're using warp manifestations, burn them out. She looked at Ben, and he saw the calculation in her eyes again. Can you fight? I can barely stand, Ben said honestly. That's not what I asked. Ben checked the Omnitrix, charged and ready, the green glow steady. His body was running on fumes, but the watch didn't care about biological limitations. It would transform him. The question was whether he'd collapse the moment the transformation ended. What do you need? He asked instead of answering. The eastern wall, Adrielle said, already moving toward the door, her officers following like a well-trained pack. It's our weakest point, older construction, fewer heavy weapons emplacements. If they breach there, they'll flood the cathedral and we'll be fighting room to room until everyone's dead. She strapped her helmet on, the ornate faceplate hiding her expression. I need something unexpected, something that will break their momentum long enough for us to shore up the defense. You need a distraction, Ben translated. I need a miracle, Adrielle corrected. But since the Emperor seems disinclined to provide one, a distraction will suffice. She paused at the doorway, looking back. I'm not ordering you to fight, outsider. You've done more than required. If you want to hide in the Medici ward until this is over, no one will judge you. It was the same trick as before, giving him the choice, making it his decision. But this time, Ben understood what she was really saying. I need you, but I won't force you. Not because I'm merciful, but because forced soldiers are unreliable. Ben thought about Mira, recovering somewhere in this vast cathedral. Thought about the 3 children he'd saved, who'd die if the cultists breached the walls. Thought about home, about Gwen and Kevin and Grandpa Max, who'd probably never know what happened to him. Thought about who he was when he wore the Omnitrix, about the responsibility that came with power. Which transformation works best against warp sorcery? He asked. Adrielle almost smiled. I have no idea. You're the first alien shapeshifter I've encountered who wasn't immediately executed. Fantastic. Ben pushed himself to his feet, legs protesting every movement. Guess I'll improvise. Wouldn't be the first time. One more thing, Matthias said, and when Ben turned, the old priest was holding something. A small Aquila pendant on a chain, the 2-headed eagle rendered in tarnished silver. I won't insult you by suggesting you pray to the Emperor, but consider it a reminder that even in this nightmare universe, there are those who fight because they must, not because they've lost their humanity. Ben took the pendant, surprised by its weight. I'm not one of you. No, Matthias agreed. But perhaps that's exactly what we need. Someone who still remembers that there should be another way, even when forced to accept there isn't. Ben pocketed the pendant and followed Adrielle out into the cathedral's corridors, toward the sounds of battle growing louder with each step. The eastern wall was barely holding. Ben emerged onto a defensive platform overlooking the cathedral's perimeter just in time to see an entire section of ancient stonework explode inward. Not from conventional weapons, from something else, a force that made reality ripple and fold like cloth. Through the breach, crimson-armored figures advanced, cultists screaming their devotion as they charged over their own dead. "Here they come!" someone shouted, Watch Captain Stern, identifiable by the captain's insignia on his helmet and the power sword crackling in his grip. "For the Emperor!" The defenders opened fire. Lost weapons lit the night in strobing red. Heavy bolters tore into the advancing masses, and a battle sister with a flamer unit turned the breach into a wall of promethium fire. But the cultists kept coming, kept dying, kept advancing through flames and bullets like death meant nothing. Because to them, Ben realized with horror it probably didn't. They weren't fighting for survival or victory. They were fighting for a chance to die in service of their dark gods. Canonus, another officer, this one with half his face replaced by Omnitrix, pointed toward the breach. "Sorcerers manifesting. 3 no, for signatures." Through the smoke and fire, Ben saw them. For figures in crimson plate, standing at the breach's edge, their hands raised and wreathed in that impossible light that made his eyes hurt. They chanted in perfect unison, and the air around them began to tear, reality peeling back like rotted fabric. "They're opening a portal," Adrielle said, her voice tight with controlled fear. "If they manifest demons inside our perimeter." "I'm on it," Ben interrupted, already twisting the Omnitrix dial. He needed something big, something that could reach the sorcerers before they completed their ritual. Something. His finger landed on Humungosaur's silhouette. Perfect. He slammed the dial down. The transformation hit, and Ben felt his perspective shift upward as 15 tons of Vaxasaurian muscle and armor exploded into existence. Humungosaur roared. A sound like a foghorn crossed with a rockslide and jumped. The leap carried him clear over the defensive line, over the cultists' heads, directly toward the 4 sorcerers. He came down like a meteor, both fists extended, targeting the nearest ritual worker. The impact created a crater. The sorcerer disappeared beneath Humungosaur's mass, armor crumpling like tinfoil. The other 3 scattered, their chanting disrupted, and Ben felt the wrongness in the air begin to dissipate. "No portal for you," Humungosaur bellowed, spinning to face the remaining sorcerers. His tail whipped around, caught one across the midsection and sent them tumbling into the cultist ranks. "This is a no-demon zone." One of the surviving sorcerers raised both hands, and lightning, blue, white, and screaming, erupted from their palms. The blast struck Humungosaur's center mass and hurt, electricity cooking flesh even through armored hide. Ben staggered, muscles seizing, but his enhanced mass kept him upright. "Okay," he grunted, shaking off the shock. "Okay, that actually hurt, which means you're definitely going down." He charged. The sorcerer tried to dodge, but 15 tons of alien dinosaur moved faster than they expected. Ben's fist connected with their chest plate, and even through powered armor, he felt ribs crack. The sorcerer flew backward, crashed through a ruined wall, and didn't get up. That left one. The final sorcerer was different from the others. Taller, their armor more ornate, covered in script that writhed and changed even as Ben watched. When they spoke, their voice echoed with harmonics that shouldn't exist. "The shifter," they said almost conversationally. "Master Caliph will be pleased. You make such interesting choices when pressed." They gestured casually, and the air between them crystallized into jagged shapes that hung suspended like frozen lightning. Then the shapes flew at Ben like missiles. Humungosaur threw up his arms to protect his face, but the crystalline projectiles punched through his armored hide with contemptuous ease. Pain exploded across his chest, abdomen, limbs, dozens of impacts, each one leaving wounds that bled freely. Ben fell to one knee, roaring in pain and fury. The Omnitrix's timeout warning began beeping. He'd pushed this form too hard, taken too much damage. 30 seconds, maybe less. You cannot win, the sorcerer continued, summoning more of those impossible crystals. This is our domain now. Change is inevitable. Chaos is ascendant. Your resistance is... The sorcerer's head exploded. Ben blinked, stunned, as the body collapsed. Behind where the sorcerer had stood, Canoness Adriel lowered her bolt pistol, smoke curling from its barrel. Unnecessary monologuing is a capital offense, she said calmly, then raised her voice to address the defenders. Push them back. For the Emperor and the faithful dead. The battle sisters surged forward, their war cry echoing across the battlefield. Bolter fire tore into the cultist ranks with renewed fury. Someone triggered charges that collapsed the breach, burying dozens of attackers under tons of rubble. The transformation timeout hit, and Ben reverted to human form in a heap, gasping and bleeding from a dozen wounds. The crystalline projectiles had vanished with his transformation, but the damage remained. Torn skin, bruised organs, possibly a cracked rib or three. Adriel appeared over him, silhouetted against the smoke-filled sky. Can you walk? Define walk, Ben wheezed. Then I'll have you carried. She gestured, and two battle sisters moved to lift Ben. You did well, outsider. The ritual was broken. The breach is sealed, and we've bought ourselves another hour. Her scarred face was unreadable. Another hour to live. Another hour to fight. That's all we can ask in this galaxy. As they carried him back toward the Medicae ward, Ben watched the battle continue behind them. Defenders firing until their weapons ran dry, then drawing blades and clubs to continue fighting. Cultists dying in droves but never retreating, never surrendering. The cathedral, massive and ancient and beautiful in its Gothic horror, standing against the darkness through sheer bloody-minded refusal to fall. This is insane, Ben mumbled as exhaustion and blood loss dragged him toward unconsciousness. All of this, it's insane. Yes, Adriel agreed simply. Welcome to the 41st millennium. Ben's last thought before darkness claimed him was that Grandpa Max would never believe this when, if, he made it home. His second-to-last thought was that he wasn't sure he'd survive long enough to find out. Ben woke to pain and the smell of incense. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on a vaulted ceiling covered in frescoes depicting battles between golden warriors and things that hurt to look at. Everything hurt. His chest, his arms, his ribs, even breathing was agony. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Easy, young one. A gentle hand pressed him back down. Ben turned his head carefully to see Sister Melina, the matronly Medicae from before. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Your wounds were extensive. How bad? Ben's voice came out as a croak. 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions across 70% of your torso, moderate blood loss, and what our chirurgeons describe as alien physiology stress patterns they've never encountered. Melina's expression was professionally neutral. You should be dead or at least incapacitated for weeks. Instead, you'll probably be walking in a day or two. Your biology is remarkable. Ben managed a weak smile. Comes with the watch. Azimuth built in accelerated healing for the transformation recovery periods. He tried to sit up again, more slowly this time, and made it halfway before his ribs screamed protest. What happened? The battle? Still ongoing but stalemated. The enemy launches probing attacks, we repel them. They pull back, we shore up defenses. It's been the same pattern for hours. Melina helped him into a sitting position, propping pillows behind his back. The canoness says we're buying time for reinforcements. I think she's hoping for a miracle. Miracles seem in short supply around here, Ben muttered. He looked around the Medicae ward. Rows of cots filled with wounded defenders, some groaning, others ominously still. And there, in the corner, 3 small figures sleeping under careful watch. The kids I brought back. Are they alive and uncontaminated? Melina confirmed. We ran every test in the mini-storm protocols. No warp taint, no chaos markers, no demonic influence. They were taken before the ritual work began in earnest. Her expression softened. You saved them, Ben. Truly saved them. That's more than most people manage in this galaxy. Ben wanted to feel good about that. Wanted to focus on the 3 instead of the 14. But his mind kept returning to those other children, the ones who'd been too far gone, too corrupted, too. Stop, Melina said firmly, as if reading his thoughts. I've seen that look in too many soldiers' eyes. Survivor's guilt, the chirurgeons call it. The weight of those you couldn't save crushing the value of those you could. She took his hand in both of hers. Listen to me. You are 16 years old from a universe that apparently doesn't require children to make choices between bad and worse. What you did yesterday would break veteran soldiers twice your age. The fact that you're questioning it, that you feel guilt rather than righteousness, means you haven't lost yourself yet. Yet, Ben repeated hollowly. Yet, Melina agreed without flinching. This galaxy eats souls, Ben. It devours idealism and spits out pragmatism until pragmatism becomes cruelty and cruelty becomes normal. But knowing that, fighting against that, is how you stay human. She squeezed his hand. Don't let this place make you into something you're not. Before Ben could respond, the ward's doors opened and Canoness Adrielle strode in. Still in her battle plate, though the worst of the combat grime had been cleaned away. She nodded to Melina, who quietly excused herself. You're awake, Adrielle observed, approaching Ben's cot. Good. We need to talk. About what? Ben asked warily. About what happens next. Adrielle pulled up a stool, somehow making the simple action look dignified despite her bulk in power armor, and sat. The situation has changed. 2 hours ago, we received Vox communication from the Planetary Defense Command. A relief force is inbound, 3 companies of Imperial Guard, plus supporting armor and air elements. Estimated arrival, 18 hours. That's good, right? Ben said, though Adrielle's expression suggested otherwise. It's complicated. She leaned forward, elbows on her armored knees. The Guard will break the siege, yes, but they'll also bring inquisitorial oversight. Someone reported anomalous Xenos activity during the battle. Specifically, a shape-shifting entity fighting alongside cathedral defenders. Her eyes locked onto Ben's. They're coming for you. Ben's blood ran cold. The Inquisition. That's bad. The Inquisition is the Imperium's ultimate authority on matters of heresy, xenotech, and demonic corruption. Adrielle explained, her voice clinical. They answer to no one except the Emperor himself. They have unlimited authority to investigate, interrogate, and execute anyone they deem a threat to humanity's survival. She paused. And a xenotech device that grants shape-shifting powers definitely qualifies as a threat. So what are you saying? That I should run. I'm saying you have approximately 18 hours to decide what kind of person you want to be. Adrielle stood, began pacing. A restless energy that seemed at odds with her earlier calm. Option 1, you stay. Face inquisitorial interrogation. Prove your loyalty to humanity through whatever means they demand. If you survive, and that's a significant if, you might earn a place within the Imperium's hierarchy. Controlled, monitored, but alive and potentially useful. Option 2. Ben prompted. You run. Use your transformations to escape before the Guard arrives. Disappear into the Underhive or flee off-world. Become a fugitive, hunted across the Imperium, always looking over your shoulder. Adrielle stopped pacing, faced him directly. Or you find a way home to your own universe and leave this nightmare behind. You'd just let me go? Ben asked skeptically. After all that talk about executing me if I tried to flee? I said if you fled during the siege when we needed you, Adriel corrected. The siege is effectively over. And, she hesitated, something almost human flickering across her scarred features. You fought for us, outsider. You saved lives at great personal cost. You made the hard choices we demanded and didn't break under their weight. Her hand moved to the Aquila pendant hanging from her armor. That earns you at least the chance to choose your own fate. Ben studied her, trying to understand. Why do you care? You barely know me. Because you remind me of someone I used to be, Adriel said quietly. Before the galaxy taught me that mercy was weakness and compassion was liability. You still believe there should be another way, even after everything you've seen. She smiled, a small, sad expression. I want to see if that belief can survive, or if this universe will crush it like it crushes everything else. That's surprisingly honest, Ben said. I'm not required to like the Imperium's methods, Adriel replied. Only to employ them. There's a difference, though most people forget it eventually. She straightened, her moment of vulnerability passing. You have until dawn to decide. I'll have Father Matthias prepare supplies regardless of your choice, ration bars, water, a map of the city. If you run, at least you'll run with provisions. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. That sorcerer you fought, the one whose ritual you disrupted, he left you a message. A message? Ben's stomach tightened. What kind of message? The kind delivered through cultists we captured after the battle. Adriel's expression was grim. They all said the same thing, word for word, like a recording. Tell the shifter that Master Caliph awaits his answer. The door remains open. Knock when you're ready to transcend your limitations. Ben's hand instinctively went to the Omnitrix, remembering that voice during his corrupted transformation. Let me in. Let me show you perfection. I'm not joining that psycho, he said firmly. Good. Adriel nodded approvingly. Because if you did, I'd have to kill you myself. And I've grown somewhat fond of you, strange as that is. She actually smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her scarred face. Rest, Ben10. Tomorrow brings difficult choices. Tonight, at least, you're safe. After she left, Ben lay back against his pillows, mind racing. 18 hours to decide his fate. Stay and face inquisitorial interrogation, probably torture, possibly execution. Run and spend the rest of his life as a fugitive in a galaxy that wanted him dead. Or somehow find a way home to a universe that suddenly seemed impossibly distant. What would Grandpa Max do? The question was automatic, a reflex from years of learning at his grandfather's feet. Max would assess the situation, identify assets and liabilities, formulate a plan with multiple contingencies. Assets. The Omnitrix, still functional despite warp interference. His transformations, though some seemed vulnerable to corruption. His knowledge of technology that this universe couldn't comprehend. The tentative alliance with Adriel and possibly Father Matthias. Liabilities. Exhaustion and injury limiting his effectiveness. No knowledge of how to get home. The Inquisition hunting him. Caliph actively trying to corrupt him. The entire Imperium's xenophobia painting a target on his back. And somewhere in this calculus there was Mira, and the 3 children he'd saved, and all the other innocents caught in this galaxy's grinding horror. I can't save them all, Ben thought, but maybe I can save some. Maybe that's enough. Can't sleep either? Ben jerked upright, too fast, his ribs protesting, and found Mira standing beside his cot. She looked better than before, the split lip healing, though her eyes still held shadows too dark for a child's face. You should be resting, Ben said, patting the edge of his cot. Come here. Mira climbed up carefully, settling beside him. I had bad dreams. About the men in red armor. About. She trailed off, shivering. Yeah, Ben said softly. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, Two people from fundamentally different worlds united by trauma and survival. Are you leaving? Mira asked finally. I heard Sister Melina talking. She said the Inquisition is coming and that you'd probably run.
Ben sighed.
I don't know yet. Maybe. Would you be upset if I did? No. Myra's answer was immediate, surprising him. This place, this whole world, it's not safe for you. The priests, they say things about xenos and mutants and how they all have to die to keep humanity pure. She looked up at him with those two old eyes. You're not human, are you? When you change, you become something else. Yeah, Ben admitted. I become aliens, different species from different planets. But I'm still me inside. Still Ben. I know. Mira leaned against his uninjured side. You're good, Ben. Really good. Not the pretend good that the priests talk about, where being good means hating the right people and killing the right enemies. You're good the way my mama was good before she died. Gentle and kind and willing to help even when it's hard. Ben felt his throat tighten. Your mama sounds like she was amazing. She was. Myra's voice was small. She gave food to underhive beggars even though the Arbites said it was illegal. She told me that the Emperor loved everyone, not just the strong and faithful. The priests said she was wrong. Tears leaked from her eyes. Maybe she was. Maybe being good like that doesn't work here. Hey! Ben carefully turned so he could look her in the face. Your mama was right. Being kind, helping people, standing up for what's right, that's not weakness. That's the hardest kind of strength. He wiped a tear from her cheek. This galaxy wants you to think compassion is stupid. Don't believe it. But you're leaving, Mira said. Because compassion isn't enough here. You need to run to survive. Ben didn't have a good answer to that. Because she was right. If he stayed, if he tried to be the hero this galaxy desperately needed, he'd probably just get himself killed. Or worse, corrupted into something like Caliph, convinced that power justified any atrocity. If I run, he said carefully, would you be okay? Would the sisters take care of you? Probably, if I pass their tests. Myra's expression was resigned. They'll watch me for corruption for a while, then probably send me to a Schola if I'm lucky. Train me to serve the Imperium. She didn't sound excited about the prospect. I'll be safe. Just different. Different how? Like them. Mira gestured at the battle sisters visible through the ward's doorway, standing guard with bolters ready. Hard and practical and good at killing. The kind of person who can survive here. She looked at Ben. The kind of person you're not. The assessment stung because it was accurate. Ben had never been hard or practical. He'd always believed in second chances, in redemption, in finding the third option when presented with impossible choices. That idealism had served him well in his universe. Here it might just get him killed.
Ben.
Myra's voice was very small. Can I ask you something? Anything. If you find a way home, back to your universe, could you tell someone that things here aren't supposed to be this way? She wasn't crying anymore, but her voice shook. Could you tell them that there are kids like me who just want things to be gentle and kind? That we're not all zealots and soldiers? That some of us still remember there should be another way? Ben felt something break inside his chest. Not physically, but emotionally. All the exhaustion and trauma and moral compromise of the past day crystallizing into a single, terrible understanding. He couldn't just run. Not because staying was heroic, but because running meant accepting that this nightmare was normal. That children like Mira would grow up in a galaxy where compassion was weakness and mercy was heresy. And there was nothing anyone could do about it. I'll tell them, Ben promised, pulling Mira into a careful hug. But I'm not leaving yet. I still need to figure some things out. Like what? Like whether there's a way to be a hero here without losing myself. He released her, managed a smile. And whether a kid from California with a magic watch can make any difference in a galaxy that's been at war for 10,000 years. Mira smiled back. small and fragile but genuine. I think you already have. You saved me, and 3 other kids, and you stopped the bad ritual. She poked his chest carefully, avoiding his injuries. That's what heroes do, right? Save people even when it's hard. Yeah, Ben agreed. That's exactly what they do. After Mira returned to her cot, escorted by Sister Melina with gentle firmness, Ben lay back and stared at the frescoed ceiling. 18 hours to decide his fate. 18 hours to determine whether Ben10 stayed Ben10 or became something this universe demanded. The Omnitrix glowed softly on his wrist, green light steady and reassuring. Alien DNA from across the cosmos, each form offering different powers, different capabilities, different ways to solve problems. But underneath all those transformations, he was still just Ben. Still the kid who'd found a watch in the woods and decided to use it to help people. That core identity, that stubborn, idealistic, occasionally stupid heroism, was what made him who he was. This galaxy wants to change me, Ben thought. Wants to make me harder, colder, more willing to accept necessary evil. But I'm the one with a watch that lets me change into anything. Maybe it's time this universe did some changing instead. It was a naive thought, probably a suicidal thought. But it was his thought, and after everything he'd been through, he was going to hold on to it. For Mira, for the 3 kids he'd saved, for all the people in this nightmare galaxy who still remembered there should be another way. And maybe, just maybe, because Grandpa Max wouldn't want him to give up. Ben closed his eyes and, for the first time since arriving in the 41st millennium, managed to fall asleep without nightmares. He'd make his decision in the morning. For now, rest was enough. Dawn came to Sanctum Validus without ceremony. Just a gradual lightening of the smoke-choked sky from black to bruised purple-gray. Ben woke to the sound of engines, heavy and numerous, rumbling through the city like mechanical thunder. The Imperial Guard had arrived. He pulled himself out of bed, his ribs protesting but manageable. Someone, probably Sister Melina, had left fresh clothes on the chair beside his cot. Plain gray fatigues that were too large for him but clean and functional. He dressed carefully, every movement a negotiation with his healing injuries. Through the Medici ward's high windows, Ben could see them. Columns of armored vehicles advancing through the streets, pennants bearing eagles and skulls snapping in the wind. Soldiers in flak armor and helmets marched in disciplined formations, their las guns held ready. And above it all, aircraft screamed past. Fighter craft and gunships, their engines drowning out everything else. Impressive, isn't it? Father Matthias appeared beside him, moving with that unnerving silence old men sometimes developed. The might of the Imperium made manifest. 3,000 soldiers, plus armor and air support, all dedicated to retaking one city on one planet among millions. He gazed out the window. We throw men at problems like you throw transformations, Ben. Whatever works. Did you come to give me another philosophical lesson? Ben asked, though without heat. He'd grown to appreciate the old priest's blunt wisdom. I came to tell you that Canoness Adriel requests your presence in the command center. Matthias's expression was carefully neutral. The Inquisitor has arrived and wishes to meet you. Ben's stomach dropped. Already? I thought I had until. The Inquisitor arrived on the vanguard elements, ahead of the main force. Matthias laid a hand on Ben's shoulder. Whatever you were planning, running, hiding, transforming into something small and fleeing into the Underhive, it's too late now. The cathedral is surrounded by guard positions. You'd never make it out. So I'm trapped. You're cornered, Matthias corrected. There's a difference. Trapped implies helplessness. Cornered implies you still have claws. He squeezed Ben's shoulder. Remember who you are, boy. Not what they want you to be. Who you are. They walked through the cathedral's corridors in silence, passing exhausted defenders slumped against walls and wounded being carried to the Medici ward. The siege was broken, but the cost was evident in every scarred face and blood-stained uniform. The command center had been transformed. Where before it had been a functional war room, now it looked like a throne room. Imperial Guard officers stood at attention along the walls. Battle sisters in full ceremonial armor flanked the entrance. And at the center, behind Adriel's tactical table, stood a figure that made Ben's instincts scream danger. The Inquisitor was not what Ben expected. She was young, maybe mid-30s, with sharp features and dark hair pulled back severely. She wore black power armor decorated with red trim and the same eagle symbols that adorned everything in this universe. But it was her eyes that captured Ben's attention. Cold, analytical. The gaze of someone who'd seen every possible variation of human depravity and learned to catalog it dispassionately. At her side stood something that made Ben's skin crawl. A figure in crimson robes whose face was hidden behind a silver skull mask. Tech priest. Ben's mind supplied from overheard conversations. Adeptus Mechanicus. Half human, half machine, and entirely unsettling. Ben10, the Inquisitor said, her voice carrying effortless authority. I am Inquisitor Cassandra Vire of the Ordo Xenos. Please approach. Ben stepped forward, very aware of every weapon in the room tracking his movement. Adriel stood to one side, her expression unreadable behind her helmet. Father Matthias remained near the door, hands clasped as if in prayer. Hi, Ben said, because what else was there to say? I'm guessing you have questions. I have many questions, Vire agreed. Starting with this. She gestured, and the tech priest activated a hololithic projector. Images flickered to life above the tactical table, grainy, distorted footage from what looked like security cameras. Ben watched himself transform into Humongosaur, then XLR-8, then Jetray, each transformation captured from multiple angles. These picked captures were recovered from Arbite's surveillance equipment, Vire continued. They show a human subject undergoing radical physical metamorphosis into various Xenos forms. Analysis indicates at least 6 distinct alien physiologies, each one catalogued as hostile or unknown to Imperial xenobiology. Her eyes fixed on Ben. Explain. Ben took a breath, organizing his thoughts. Lying was pointless. She clearly had evidence. But how much truth could he tell without condemning himself? It's called the Omnitrix, he said, raising his wrist to display the device. It's technology from my universe, which isn't this one, by the way. I'm not from around here. The Omnitrix contains DNA samples from over 1 million alien species. It lets me transform into different aliens temporarily, taking on their powers and abilities. The tech priest moved forward with disturbing speed, mechadendrites, mechanical tentacles, extending from beneath their robes. Designate impossible technology. Request immediate confiscation and study. Muggos heretic, contain yourself, Vire said sharply, and the tech priest reluctantly pulled back. We will examine the device, but not before understanding its wielder. She returned her attention to Ben. You claim to be from another universe. Elaborate. So Ben told his story, condensed, edited for an audience that might execute him at any moment, but fundamentally truthful. The fight with Vilgax, the attempt to use Alien X, the dimensional rift, his arrival on Sanctum Validus and everything that followed. Vire listened without interruption, her expression never changing. When Ben finished, silence filled the command center. An extraordinary tale, Vire said finally. One that under normal circumstances would result in your immediate execution for heresy, xenotech possession, and consorting with chaos forces. She paused. However, Canoness Adriel has provided testimony of your actions during the siege. You fought against chaos cultists. You saved Imperial civilians, including children. You disrupted enemy ritual work at great personal cost. Her eyes narrowed. You also, according to reports, burned a Medicae facility containing potentially corrupted children rather than allow them to be used by the enemy. I had to make a choice, Ben said quietly. I chose the lesser evil. Lesser evil, Vire repeated, something almost like approval flickering across her face. Most Xenos-touched individuals rationalize their corruption as necessity. Few have the self-awareness to name it evil. She circled the table, studying Ben from different angles. Tell me, Ben10, what do you think of the Imperium? Of humanity's methods in this galaxy? It was a trap question. Ben could feel it. Answer too positively and he'd seem like a liar. Too negatively and he'd prove himself a threat. I think you're terrified, Ben said honestly. All of you. You've created this massive, brutal system because you're surrounded by threats that genuinely want to wipe out humanity. The paranoia, the executions, the way you treat compassion as weakness. It's all because you're fighting for survival against impossible odds. He met her eyes. I think you've lost your way, but I also think you genuinely believe you're doing what's necessary. Vire's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. And if I told you that you're correct, that the Imperium's cruelty is indeed necessary, that every execution and purge and act of ruthless pragmatism serves humanity's continued existence? What then? Then I'd say your universe is broken, Ben replied, and that broken things can be fixed. Can they? Vire's voice was soft, almost gentle. Or are some things too shattered to repair, too corrupted to redeem? She stopped her circling, standing directly across from Ben. I have studied Xenos for 20 years, boy. Eldar, Orcs, Tau, Necrons, Tyranids, every major species and 100 minor ones. I have learned their tactics, their technologies, their psychologies. And every single one, without exception, represents an existential threat to humanity. She gestured at the Omnitrix. That device gives you the power to become those threats, to embody the enemy, to wear their flesh and wield their strengths. Her voice hardened. How can I possibly trust that such power won't corrupt you? That one day you won't decide humanity deserves extinction? Because I'm not them, Ben said firmly. I'm human. I was born human. I'll die human, and every time I transform, I know I'm coming back to being human. The aliens I become, they're tools, powers I use to help people. They're not who I am. Prove it, Vire said simply. How? Transform. Here. Now. She gestured to the open space in the center of the room. Show me that you maintain control, that the Xenos forms don't dominate your consciousness. That you remain you.
Ben hesitated.
This could go wrong in so many ways, but refusing would confirm every suspicion Vire had. Okay, he said, stepping into the designated space. But I need you to promise not to shoot me the second I change. Kind of defeats the purpose if I get executed mid-transformation. You have my word, Vire said. Transform. Maintain the form for 1 minute, then revert. If you can do so without losing control, I'll consider it evidence of your claim. Ben checked the Omnitrix, fully charged. He scrolled through his options, looking for something that wouldn't seem too threatening. Not for arms, too aggressive. Not ghost freak, too creepy. Maybe. He selected Wildmutt and slammed the dial. The transformation was instantaneous. Ben dropped to all fours as his body restructured. Sensory organs replacing eyes, orange fur covering his skin, powerful limbs built for speed and agility. Wildmutt had no eyes, no conventional sight, but his other senses more than compensated. He could smell everyone in the room, hear their heartbeats, feel the electromagnetic fields from the tech priest's augmetics. He could also smell their fear, the soldiers' hands tightening on their weapons, the tech priest's mechadendrites tensing. Even Vire's heart rate had elevated slightly. Stay calm, Ben thought, projecting the intention through Wildmutt's more instinct-driven consciousness. Stay in control. Show them you're still you. He sat, like a dog. It felt ridiculous, but it was non-threatening and clearly demonstrated rational thought rather than bestial aggression. The room was dead silent. Ben waited, counting seconds. 45, 50, 55, 60. He stood, triggered the transformation release, and reverted to human form in a flash of green light. 1 minute, Ben said, slightly breathless from the rapid transformation cycle. As requested. Still me. Still in control. Vire studied him for a long moment. Then, to Ben's surprise, she smiled. A small, genuine expression that completely transformed her face. Remarkable. Muggos, your analysis. The tech priest's mechanical voice buzzed with something that might have been excitement. Transformation complete in 0.73 seconds. Xenoform maintained stable consciousness throughout duration. Subject demonstrated rational thought processes despite lacking conventional sensory organs. Genetic rewrite achieved perfection level. 99.8%. Designate unprecedented.
Impossible.
Beautiful. Control yourself, Muggos, Vire said, though she sounded amused. Your passion is showing. She turned back to Ben. You've proven your claim, Ben10. You maintain control of these forms. They don't control you. She paused. Which creates a dilemma. What kind of dilemma? Ben asked warily. The kind where I must decide whether to execute you as a Xenos threat, recruit you as an Imperial asset, or find a third option no one expects. Vire began pacing, her power armor making soft mechanical sounds with each step. The Ordo Xenos mandate is clear. Identify and neutralize alien threats to humanity. By that standard, you should die. But, she stopped, looking at Ben with those calculating eyes. You're also potentially the most valuable intelligence asset I've encountered in my career. Knowledge of alien species the Imperium has never catalogued. Technology we can't comprehend. Capabilities that could turn the tide of conflicts across multiple sectors. So you want to use me? Ben said flatly. I want to give you a choice, Vire corrected. Option 1. Formal recruitment into inquisitorial service. You become my asset, housed, fed, protected, but also controlled, monitored, and occasionally deployed on missions of my choosing. You'd be valuable but never free. And option 2? I declare you an anomalous entity beyond current Imperial classification, grant you provisional non-hostile status, and release you into the galaxy with a tracking device and orders to report monthly on your activities and discoveries. Vire's smile was thin. You'd have freedom but constant surveillance. One mistake, one sign of corruption, and I'll activate your tracker and hunt you across the stars. Those are both terrible options, Ben said. Welcome to the Imperium, Vire replied dryly. We specialize in terrible options. But consider the alternative. Immediate execution followed by dissection of your corpse and confiscation of your device. She gestured at the tech priest, who had definitely edged closer to Ben during the conversation. Muggos heretic would learn so much from your autopsy. Ben looked around the room at Adriel, who gave him the slightest nod of encouragement, at Father Matthias, whose expression suggested he'd seen this coming, at the assembled soldiers who'd shoot him without hesitation if ordered. If I choose option 2, Ben said slowly, what happens to the people here? To Mira and the other kids I saved? To Adriel and Matthias? They remain under my protection, Vire said. I owe the Canoness for her cooperation during this investigation. She'll be formally commended. The cathedral will receive resources for reconstruction, and your rescued civilians will be given proper placement within the Imperium's bureaucracy rather than being processed as potential corrupts. She tilted her head. You care about them. Curious. Most operatives negotiate for personal gain. I'm not most operatives, Ben said. I'm just a kid trying to do the right thing. Then do the right thing, Vire challenged. Choose, or I'll choose for you, and you won't like my decision. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, at the device that had defined his life for 6 years. The watch that had given him power, responsibility, and purpose. Here, in this nightmare universe, it made him a target, a threat, an anomaly to be controlled or destroyed. But it also made him a hero, and heroes didn't give up, even when the odds were impossible. What would Grandpa Max do? The answer came immediately: he'd survive. He'd adapt. He'd find the angle that let him keep fighting while staying alive. Option 2, Ben said. I'll take my freedom, even with strings attached. But I have conditions. Fire's eyebrow rose. You're negotiating? Always. Ben managed a smile that felt more confident than he felt. First condition. The tracking device has to be removable in emergencies. If I'm fighting something that can trace technology, I need the option to ditch it temporarily. Acceptable, Vire said after a moment. Though if you're separated from your tracker for more than 72 hours without prior authorization, I'll assume corruption and send kill teams. Next condition. Second, you help me find information about dimensional travel. My universe has to have a dimensional signature, a resonance pattern, something. If your Imperium has been fighting aliens for 10,000 years, you must have encountered other realities. The warp is not dimensional travel in the sense you mean, Vire said carefully. But yes, there are records, ancient texts, forbidden knowledge that the Inquisition keeps sealed. She considered. I can give you access to certain archives, under supervision, with limitations. Acceptable? Yeah. Ben took a breath. Third condition. If I find people who need help, really need help, life or death situations, I'm helping them. Even if it complicates your missions, even if it's inefficient, that's non-negotiable. Vire was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed. A genuine sound of amusement that made several soldiers flinch in surprise. You really are an idealist, she said. Fine. Third condition accepted, with the caveat that I reserve the right to define life or death if disputes arise. She extended her hand. Do we have an accord, Ben10? Or do I need to threaten you with more unpleasant alternatives? Ben took her hand, shook it firmly. We have an accord. I'm officially your... What? Asset? Consultant? Anomalous independent operator, Vire said. It's a designation I just invented. You're literally the first. She released his hand and gestured to the tech priest. Muggos, prepare a tracking implant. Subdermal, non-invasive, with the emergency release function he requested. Acknowledged. Designate. Cooperation achieved. Probability of subject survival increased to 37%. The tech priest somehow sounded pleased about this. That's not a great survival rate, Ben muttered. It's better than the 3% you had when you arrived, Matthias said from the doorway, approaching with something in his hands. Take this, boy. You'll need it more than I will. It was a data slate, a flat rectangular device with a screen and input interface. Basic by the standards of Ben's universe, cutting edge here. Maps of the sector, Matthias explained. Contact frequencies for Imperial outposts that might not shoot you immediately. Prayer verses you can recite if questioned by zealots. Not that you'll mean them, but appearing faithful can save your life. He gripped Ben's shoulder. And coordinates for places where the Imperium's reach is lighter. Rogue trader stations, frontier worlds, places where questions aren't asked too loudly. Thank you, Ben said sincerely, for everything, for not executing me on sight. Thank me by surviving, Matthias replied, and by remembering that even in this nightmare, there are those who fight for something more than survival, who still believe in redemption and mercy and all those soft virtues the galaxy despises. He smiled. Be that reminder, Ben, for people like young Mira who still hope for gentleness. Adrielle approached next, removed her helmet to reveal her scarred face fully. I won't say it's been pleasant, but you fought well, outsider. Stayed true to yourself despite everything. She offered a formal salute, fist to chest, eagle fashion. If you ever need sanctuary and can reach Sanctum Validus, the cathedral will grant it. I'll see to it personally. I'll remember that, Ben promised. Take care of Mira, yeah? And the other kids. Don't let this place break them. I'll try. Adriel's expression softened fractionally. Though I suspect they'll break me first. Children have a way of reminding you what you're fighting for. She replaced her helmet, hiding her humanity behind ornate faceplate. Emperor guide you, Ben10, or whatever god you worship. I'll settle for luck, Ben said. The implant procedure took 15 minutes and hurt more than Ben expected. The tech priest's mechadendrites were surprisingly gentle as they inserted the tracking device beneath the skin of his forearm. But gentle didn't mean painless. When it was done, Ben had a small lump near his wrist, invisible under clothing, but he could feel it when he pressed. Vire handed him a pack, supplies, rations, water, currency in the form of stamped metal coins that looked medieval. Your first report is due in 30 days. Use the slate's encrypted Vox function, frequency already programmed. Miss 2 consecutive reports and I'll assume you're compromised. Understood. Ben shouldered the pack, checked the Omnitrix, still functioning, still his. Where should I go? Any recommendations? Away, Vire said bluntly. Sanctum Validus is being rebuilt and pacified. The guard will be here for months, possibly years. You don't want to be around Imperial military forces longer than necessary. Someone will notice you, and my protection only extends so far. She pulled up a hololith map of the planet, pointing to a location several thousand kilometers from their current position. Here, Porta Sella, Voidport City with connections to off-world trade. If you want to search for information about dimensional travel, you'll need access to archives beyond this backwater planet. Her finger traced a route. Travel will take approximately 2 weeks on foot, less if you use your transformations intelligently. Avoid major population centers. Stay off Imperial databases. So basically be a ghost, Ben summarized. Basically, Vire shut down the hololith. One more thing. Caliph, the Chaos Sorcerer who's been hunting you. My forces have engaged his warband multiple times. He's withdrawn from Sanctum Validus, but he's not gone. His interest in you and your device is now a matter of inquisitorial record. If he approaches you again, do not engage. Run. Report. Survive. In that order. What if he catches me? Ben asked. Then you'll either be corrupted, killed, or both. Vire's expression was stone. And I'll send teams to recover your corpse and the Omnitrix, preferably before Chaos gets full access to its capabilities.
Comforting, Ben my third.
I don't do comfort, Vire replied.
I do survival.
Remember that. Ben left the cathedral at midday, when the guard forces were occupied with establishing patrol routes and rebuilding defensive positions. No one stopped him as he walked through the postern gate. Vire's authority apparently extended to making people look the other way. Mira was waiting outside, sitting on a chunk of rubble and clutching that crude wooden doll. She stood when she saw him, eyes already filling with tears. You're leaving, she said. Not a question. Yeah. Ben knelt so they were eye level. I have to, but you're going to be okay. Adriel promised to look after you, and Father Matthias will make sure you don't get lost in the system. I know. Mira wiped her eyes angrily. I know all that. I wanted to say thank you for saving me, for showing me that being good doesn't make you weak. She threw her arms around his neck, hugging fiercely. Don't let them change you, Ben. Don't let this galaxy make you hard. Ben hugged her back, careful of his healing injuries. I'll try. And hey, he pulled back, smiled at her. Maybe someday I'll figure out how to fix this broken universe. Make it somewhere people like your mama can be kind without getting killed for it. That would be nice, Mira said, managing a watery smile. Even if it's impossible. I'm pretty good at impossible, Ben replied. It's kind of my thing. He stood, shouldered his pack, and started walking. Mira watched him go, small and alone against the cathedral's massive facade. Ben didn't look back. He'd learned that looking back made leaving harder. The city streets were a maze of destruction being slowly rebuilt. Imperial Guard engineers operated heavy equipment, clearing rubble and repairing infrastructure. Civilians emerged from hiding, faces gaunt but hopeful. Life returning to spaces death had claimed. Ben walked for 3 hours before reaching the city's edge, where urban sprawl gave way to wastelands and ruined manufactorums. There, where no one would see, he checked the Omnitrix one more time and allowed himself a moment of honest fear. He was alone in a hostile galaxy, hunted by zealots, wanted by a sorcerer, tagged by an inquisitor, and carrying technology that made him a walking apocalypse. He had no clear plan, no idea how to get home, and every reason to believe he'd die horribly within a month. But he'd faced bad odds before. He'd saved the universe multiple times. And most importantly, he was still Ben10, still the kid who'd chosen to be a hero when given godlike power. This galaxy wanted to break him, turn him into something cruel and practical and willing to accept necessary evil as normal. He twisted the Omnitrix dial, selected XLR8, and prepared to run. "Yeah," Ben said to the empty wasteland. "We'll see about that." Green light flashed, and the fastest alien in his roster exploded into existence. XLR8's velocity perception kicked in, and the world slowed to a crawl. 2 weeks to Porticella. Then answers. Then maybe, just maybe, a way home. Ben ran, blue scales gleaming in the weak sunlight, leaving Sanctum Validus and its horrors behind. The 41st millennium wasn't done with him yet. But Ben10 wasn't done fighting either.